corner, so I think that one is actually going to go for above.
Across the street here, there's on the corner, there is a, is it a realtor office?
That's mine.
Okay, that's yours, okay? It was vacant for years.
Yep.
They couldn't sell it for anything. And I'm very sad, I wasn't on council then, that was what I was talking about.
Okay.
Was expanding by acquiring that piece of land.
Well, we can talk.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not that I want to sell, but I mean, you know, hey,
Right.
everything has a price. But yes, that's where we're at, because there's my property and the one right behind it, Mila and Richard Perkins own, where their daughters are staying. So that would be all the way through if you guys were looking at that, yes. So otherwise it's your property to the left, which, other than that, on the second slides that I had, there was a piece of property that was over there that was owned by, that's owned actually by Clay Electric. It's owned utilities and it's 1.42 acres. And I don't know if Orchid actually goes all the way back that far. It almost looks like it's landlocked, but that would be something we could
Is
definitely
this
look at.
on Nightingale?
There was no address on that one. It just says Orchid.
Orchid.
That's it, Orchid Avenue.
Yeah, this is, if you took Orchid more towards the Clay Electric property back in there.
It actually
not
butts up
where
to-
folks are used to driving on Orchid, but going further back in there up against Clay Electric.
Right,
Right,
okay,
it
and
butts
it
up
was
to-
on Zillow, it was divided into 3 parcels, and it had prices for sale of $20,000 a piece of 3 parcels. Did you look at Zillow at all?
Zillow, I didn't see anything on Zillow for where this was for sale. Sometimes Zillow has stuff on there that is old data.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful what you're looking at on that. But the other one that you had asked about was 7211 Cardinal Street. And the only 7211 Cardinal is actually in Floral. When you look at Cardinal down here, everything that runs along Cardinal, there's no businesses where their addresses are actually on Cardinal. They're either going to be on Palmetto, Beasley Lane, or on Lawrence Boulevard.
So again, I pulled that off of Zillow, and that was definitely listed for sale on Zillow.
Yeah, because there is nothing. The only 7211, and that's in Clay County, 7211 Cardinal, but it's Floral. There is no other 7211. So no, and again, I drove the road, and everything that runs along that either is officed along the other side streets. That would be their addresses. So I can call you, Dan, and we can.
Now let me, Ken Bo, we did our ride along a week ago or so. What was the street that you said we owned wider than the street and we could expand and put parking in if we needed?
Sylvan Way.
It was Silverway. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the stay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Alrighty, next.
Can we just have a discussion about this information?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so, out of all of that, my interest to follow up, the next step, okay? I would be interested in engaging with Clay Electric about the 1.42 acres back off of Washington. I don't know if they want to sell it, maybe they don't want to. It is unimproved, it's just got a bunch of trees on it. It's near downtown, but it's not right on downtown. In other words, it's not a great commercial property. There's no income coming from it right now. So it's not like we lose any tax income from it if we were to acquire it. And then the other one is to, how do I say this? Keep in contact with the LLC, the brother and the sister, the one in Germany, the one in California, because as we discussed at our last meeting of the CRA, the beach park is the most visited, the most popular, and that is the only direction I see us going to add to the park. So I just share my thoughts. I'd be interested in what your thoughts were. The rest of them, okay? Unless Mr. Hatch changes his mind, that's probably out of the question. Yeah.
You guys have any comments? Yeah? Mine?
Yeah, just those little ancillary parcels that really weren't quantified at the end. I'd like us to follow back up, see if we can match parcel numbers, try and run that down. That's, we don't need it today, but, you know, what would that add up to? Maybe a half an acre or something like that. We might need it one day. It'd be worth having while it's just sitting out there in town.
For which one?
Well, there's some little parcels you were.
Yeah, I think what he's talking about is Karen Nelson's property is between Guns and Gifts and the barbershop. As no, not that one.
There's the ones over
They
towards
were like
like.
20,000 each or something.
Yeah, the little 20,000.
Okay, yeah, that's the Clay Electric property.
Are those the same
That's
ones?
the same one.
Those are
One's the
Clay
20,
Electric. And those are the ones on Orchid?
Yes.
Okay, I have to
Well,
get
it's,
mine and see what they
it's
look like.
Orchid runs along it, so.
Nice. So that's all
That's the
Clay.
same. That's what he said, yeah.
Alright, yeah, good.
And I would kind of echo something you alluded to, and that is I have it from a good source, and I believe this realtor that property is only going to get more expensive in Keystone Heights. That we are growing, and that If we have projects 20 years down the road, we need to get the land now and sit on it. Otherwise, it's gonna be really expensive come when we want to do things.
Well, the only other thought I had is, and again, it'd be a pipe dream, but the old firehouse, getting it back.
You want us to
The
contact
location of it,
Michigan?
huh?
You want us to contact Michigan?
It doesn't hurt. I mean, it could be, I don't know, we sold it what, 3 years, as 2022 for 375 or 374 is what my records show, huh?
Not that long ago.
Not that long ago.
They sold to a treasurer to
Pension money.
Pension.
The problem is, I think with pension money, they had anticipated doing different things with it, but it wasn't designed to where they could do those things.
Right.
So now they're using it as a
It's
storage.
just mainly a storage building, right?
So
But
Andy,
that's the only other one that I think that because of the size and footprint, especially the
yeah,
footprint, would be a very, nice to have.
yeah, and the land behind it
And the land will
would
be-
match
Yeah,
with what we already have.
right.
That's a great idea.
Todd, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it would give you opportunities too if you had the firehouse, only because with that, that property behind it,
Yep.
adjoining,
And then we'd have our public works thing across the
across the
street.
street, that would just open up, I mean,
Yeah. And I think we're
opportunity.
gonna keep it during the day.
Well, it really wasn't ours to keep.
No, I know.
Along with the fire department. Volunteer fire department.
Any other comments, Shelley, about the land? If we come across something, let us all know, or hear about something. Okay, so next we'll move on to action items. The mural project. And pretty much, what we have here is, first I'm looking at this. You all look at the contract details for the mural?
Yes.
Am I looking at it correctly here?
Yeah, we have both the deed restriction and the draft agreement. So it includes Ace Hardware.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I provided you some white and red letters up there. If you want to move forward, one of the councilmen can make his motion.
I just trying to get you.
Each one of you has one.
Is anyone seen a draft in the picture?
Yes, so,
I wanna know what it looks like, it's really so good, I voted for it.
The artist literally did want us to put it
Oh,
on the
that's the
website.
That's the one. Oh, okay, yeah, we're good.
did you see it?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, you've seen it too, right? Have you seen the picture of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm looking for the motion here so I can do something, trying to find it. Okay. All right, I move that the Community Redevelopment Agency approve the expenditure of $19,000 of CRA funds to contract with the mural services of Mr. Luke Taft.
Second motion.
With the condition that property owners are willing to report the deed restriction.
As amended by our city attorney.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Beautiful.
That's beautiful.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you to the Heritage Commission
Yes.
for doing the work on
For
that.
all the work on that and interacting with the artists and whatnot. Next is our draft for our community redevelopment plan.
Vice Mayor Council. I think we've come a long way from the first time, I think in March, when we started talking about the CRA update. So what you have in front of you is which would be the plan you would adopt. Just for a couple of overlays, and then I'll go over it in this particular. The plan is for the properties within the CRA boundaries, which is the map that was included in your packet. So it's not a city redevelopment plan. It is a community redevelopment area plan. And the reason that's important is When the CRA was created back in 2004, it had specific boundaries. So funds and that can only be used for projects in the CRA. And also that's because, as I think we've discussed previously, those properties in the CRA, you not only get your normal city funds that have to be used there, but you also get county funds. So that's why it's restricted to projects within the CRA. And so we had to make some tweaks to some of the recommendations that you had at your last meeting based on that. So the plan, what we're trying to create is a plan, kind of like we talked about, that's general in nature, but would be backed up with specific budgetary projects. I think when we first started back in March, when there was a real concern at that time that the legislature was going to make some changes to the Chapter 163, which the statute that controls the community redevelopment areas, and we would basically not be allowed to do any new projects after that point, after September 30th. I think that was the original legislation. That legislation died, so we don't have to worry about it. We can take a breath right now, which I think is very good. And there are, I think, almost there's 200 or 300 CRAs throughout the state of Florida, so there's a lot of people that call to complain, their legislators. But I think it was the Senate that really kind of stood strong on that. I felt it was important to keep the CRAs. So anyway, so that's kind of what we did. But what the idea of this plan is that any projects, i.e. like your mural project that you just approved, it could, we're not going to specifically say a mural, but you could fund it because it kind of can be used by one in the four general areas we've come up to for. So that's the idea we gave, such as, because we're not saying this is inclusive. I mean, the project areas are inclusive, but the individual projects are not. And then when you do your budget, as your CRA budget, when you go through the budgetary process, you can come up with projects that I know we want to do a 3 or 5 year plan for those projects. So we've got some outlined here. So a couple of changes, just so you know, we kind of combined, we deleted the lake-related ones for 2 reasons. First, we put the lake-related projects from a park standpoint in park projects, because that's the ones that are included in the beach. That is in the beach park, is in your CRA. But we realized that a lot of your lake itself is not in the CRA. You can't kind of put a line where the improvements of the lake. So that's really a citywide project. This is not saying that you can't have, you're going to have your CRA, even though you as the CRA board, you're the Community Redevelopment Agency area board, but you're also your council. So obviously you're going to have 2 lists of projects. I mean, is the best way of saying it. So that's an important part. And so we did that. And the other thing we did was we deleted the septic to sewer, because when we looked at the actual map, and I think both Jamie presented it last meeting.
Bo, can you scroll down to the map? There it is. Okay.
Well, that's the CRA map, but then we also did a map. We created a map from the information from CCUA, and the majority of the properties within the CRA are on water and sewer. And I can kind of pass this map around. You don't have this one up. But
I don't. And
okay.
I'm just going to kind of rephrase what Janice is saying. Is basically when you superimpose the sewer mains and sewer connections, they all populate in the community redevelopment area. So I don't have the whole history, but I would believe that when we targeted developing that sewer system in 2004, 2005 timeframe, it was targeted towards the community redevelopment area. So maybe not 100% of residents who are in that area may not be connected, but from our quick assessment, we think everybody's capable of being connected. So if we're talking a septic to sewer conversion program, it's probably another one of these where that's more of a city infrastructure, community capital improvement plan for the city, as opposed to properly going on a capital improvement plan for the community redevelopment area.
I'm going to pass these maps, which basically have the connections, the actual people with connections in the lines. And we received this information from CCUA, we superimposed it on I created a map so you can get an idea where they are, just so you see it.
Yeah, because I can see, like, my lot is not part of the CRA. So really, it just means still, he said, what, 1,706 homes on sites in the city?
Yeah, and you can see the map with all.
No, there's only those.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't really want to, but whatever the case may be, it's important to, remember that those CRA, not to say that this is a city-wide project, that community development block grants have been used in a lot of communities, to extend sewer to other communities. I know there's revolving loan programs for, that they can have, the water management district, different ones, but those are being more city, not for the CRA.
So that's another different, another grant.
Exactly. So anyways, so that was taken out. So basically the areas that we have, and I just noticed one typo, it's 4, because originally I had 5. So there's 4 key areas. There's one of my correction. The first is streetscape and parking improvements, and these include focusing on enhancing roadways within the CRA, including St. Lawrence Boulevard, Commercial Circle, Sylvan Way, and others. Here's I put others. If there's a street we forgot, you can still go to it. And then these include planned improvements with upgrading parking facilities, enhanced landscaping, hardscaping, and wayfinding, sidewalk reconstruction, making sure they're ADA compliant, and general roadway enhancement. We talked about some bricks in the roadway, bricks on the sidewalks, the streetscape, to do different things in the streets. All that could be included under those without specific projects. I mean, they would definitely include that. And the second one is park improvements, and these are not in order. That's why we didn't put 1, 2, 3, 4, because I didn't want you to think they were in order. Park improvements, this category includes both upgrades to existing park facilities, the development of new amenities and activities to attract visitors and improve community use. Parks targeted for improvement, and there's one correction we have to make here too, is Keystone Beach Park, the theme park, natural park. Azalea Park is right outside, though we realize it's right outside the CRA, so that has to be deleted. Portions of the rail to trail corridor, the portions that are in the CRA, and some new parking parks, which is maybe some of these potential small parcels you're looking at. That's a good idea for them. The next one is economic development. These projects are designed to stimulate economic growth and support goals of the CRA plan. Those initiatives include organizing festivals and community events, providing landscape and facade improvement grants for local businesses, hiring an economic development / downtown manager, marketing and branding campaigns, offering development incentives, and developing a CRA specific website. And the last of the 4 key areas is infrastructure and facilities. As infrastructure investments will support long-term redevelopment goals through both upgrades and new construction. Proposed projects include property acquisition, as we just discussed, for redevelopment purposes, developing new facilities such as the city museum and visitor center, and transitioning of overhead utility lines to underground systems. Which probably is a clay electric issue, but that's something that you have it in there would help, and especially for any new development, it will allow you to make sure that the person goes underground. So, and I want to help thank Jamie for all his help in coming up with this list. And what we have a list of one of the things that kind of started, Jamie did this, where we went over some of the costs related to some of these that we thought about the estimated time frame. I will.
Sure. Mary, this was really to get at your ask to say as part of the plan you wanted to see some rough estimates on timelines and some potential costs. I believe you may have even mentioned some potential grant opportunities. So over the period of about the last week, I went through, either found some corollary projects in other cities as a baseline of estimating, or to run up some time and cost estimates. If you look at Sylvan Way parking, roughly $150,000, probably 2 years. Not sure on any potential grants that we could work on. I used the Rails to Trails project. Actually, that was finished, I think, in 2021. I was able to find in our records about how much that cost. And all these, I did a straight line escalation with about 3 or 4% inflation each year. With over the time period, we thought with the projects to get a rough estimate what that could be. If you look at the subway parking, if we were doing an equivalent of 12 parking spots, which is what is over by CDS that we built, that's a rough estimate of what it would take to get that one done. Streetscapes, I used a project that was just completed in Crestview, Florida, that's up in the Panhandle. I actually happened to get an opportunity to hike through Crestview on the Florida Trail a little while ago, and so that's how I knew it was recently done. Got in contact with them, and they spent $6 million on their project. Everybody realized that was a complete overhaul of the entire main street, all the way down road, sidewalk. They basically gutted their entire main street and went through. Our project would only be likely the hardscape components of it, landscaping, watering systems, and that sort of thing. So I was able to go into their cost breakdown and pull the information out. And so roughly estimating for streetscapes, potentially $1.5 million. Though we are working with the Florida Department of Transportation's District 2 landscape engineer. He's going to come out hopefully over the next month or two and walk Lawrence Boulevard with us to see if there's something that we can do under their annual program that could fall in and save us some money on the funding. Facade grants, I just put $20K a year in there. I'm not sure what the city has been appropriating each year or budgeting, so I just put that in there. Trailhead, restroom, pavilion, and playground. I did find in our records where we actually had a cost estimate for those back in 2018, so I just did an escalation on those and threw some potential costs for design work on it. And if you roll all those together, roughly $260,000 for that project. Pocket Park, I used a Crestview. I talked to their project manager in Crestview. I think if I remember correctly, they spent $60,000 for one, so I'm roughly estimating about $80,000 in 1 year if we wanted to do with Pocket Park. And that is exactly the same size area at Crestview. Well, one of the potential areas that we're talking about, if you look at that open area between Guns and Gifts and Barbershop, almost exactly the same size as what Crestview had. So obviously, if somebody was willing to, if we had a willing seller and we wanted to do something like that, I went ahead and dropped that in there because a lot of these are high dollar values. If the board and the city council wanted to consider something that maybe wasn't quite as expensive, Pocket Park could be something, and so it broadens out the spectrum of potential projects. Museum or Visitor Center, that one was pretty tough since we've got such a broad range of locations, sizes, what you're going to do there. So that's rough something very broad in at $500,000 over 3 years. If you were to start from scratch on a higher end facility, absolutely. And I know there's ongoing discussions about that. And then septic to sewer. Once again, I actually figured out that likely our sewer system wasn't underneath the CRA when I was building this out. But the CCUA mentioned the Doctor's Lake project. And so that was a pretty good corollary if you wanted to look at trying to get about 70 to 80 homes off of septic in the timelines and how they were able to get money from the legislature tied to St. Johns River Water Management District for their project, but it took them quite a while. I think they just finished that one up a couple of years ago up in Doctor's Lake area. Theirs was tied to nutrient reduction in Doctor's Lake. I don't necessarily know if we will have a similar compelling case to try and get those funds like Doctor's Lake did. We may be able to find some other avenues of grant opportunities with the city project.
And along these grants, especially state grants, I just was reading, so I applied for Bayport is getting, hopefully we're getting a grant, a small matching grant through the city of Jacksonville, but it's going to be funded by the state, $50,000. As of right now, because we don't know what the governor is going to do, but they went with all the small matching grants in order of how 35 of, I think there are about 40 funded, but there was enough funding to fund 35 of those. But what was interesting on the larger matching, the special category grants, which are over $50,000 for projects that have historic significance, they didn't go by the ranking of the They have a board and a staff ranks them, and then the board ranks them. There were 5 projects, one of which was the Clay County one, that I just happened to notice, but there were 5 or 6 projects. They were specific legislative asks from the specific legislature. So they did not use the recommendation from the Department of State Division of Historic Resources on these larger grants. They just went, basically they looked at about 5 or 6 legislators, picked the projects they wanted, and they got them through. So what I'm saying, to any of these projects where there's state funding, we have a very active Clay County delegation, and they're pretty high up in the chain of command for leadership, and we should take advantage of it. Because these grants, like I submitted this grant last year around this time for Mayport, and we're gonna hopefully we get funding now to start in September. So you're talking about a year, but we need to take advantage of what our legislators can possibly do for us in the next year or two. So I think.
Yeah, the grant programs are tricky on the timelines and the cutoffs.
Right, and then like a year in advance, but anything that's state legislative funding is like a year before the legislature, but then, now, like I said, I don't know, they're still waiting to see if the government's gonna approve all these, but at least they got this far. So that's just something to keep in mind, that when you have those, Charlie's very involved in this, when they have those legislative meetings, that with your appropriations, it makes a difference.
It does, and I'll get into it along with my comments after the regular meeting, but Keystone, our city and our region did very well in the year of those is Florida.
Yeah, so like the historic, so that's what I'm just saying, this is one of the major grants that were funded under just one section of the state grant was the Clay County one. So that's just, Clay County's, there's a lot more in the state, so anyways. So what the schedule is now, and I'll open it up for discussion. So this is staff based on your comments over the last 2 workshops. This is what staff has compiled as the recommended updated plan. I think I mentioned 2 changes. One is the 4 key areas and remove the LA Park. If you have any additions or corrections, we can make them our own. It is that you as a board, since this is a CRA meeting, not a workshop, you will approve this updated plan. And if you do, then that allows staff to do the required advertising, notification to the other funding agencies throughout, like Water Management District, Clay County, et cetera, that have the taxing authorities for Keystone. And then at your council meeting on August 4th, because that's where it will be the next one, you as the council will adopt the recommendations of the CRA board, I use the city board, but that's the process that's outlined in the state statute. And then you would have this as your new CRA plan. All the other parts that's in the plan, how we came here, how we got here, that doesn't change. But this is like the key that allows you to move forward funding. And it'll be in place before you adopt your CRA budget on September 30th. So
This keeps us in line with the deadlines that we're required to have based on.
Well,
you know, just trying to work it out when there's tight timelines.
Well, the key, yes, this will allow you to adopt this new plan, so when you adopt your budget, it'll be consistent. The budget you adopt in your CRA budget before September 30th, it'll be consistent with this plan.
Yes, ma'am, just for the benefit of anybody who's watching or listening, why that matters, is the House of Representatives at the state level went after CRAs pretty hard. They did not get any of their language passed that would, in CRAs, diminish what you could do with them. But every lobbyist and advocate that talked to them now has to expect that to come back in January and February of 2026, which is when the session reading these will be January 26th. So we need to be leaning into our legislative priorities and whatever CRA plan updates we have now, so at least we have something that's been voted on by council, locked in, and, you know, they can do whatever they do, we meet next January, February, but at least we have a plan that this current council wants to work on, and it'll be good, at least through next March.
Any questions? I know I was, we're current economic development downtown manager, and I don't know if you're looking at trying to, move toward the Main Street, setting, or the way they are operating, how they operate as a national organization, because I'm sure you're very familiar, you know, they offer literally training, offerings, just like Fort League Cities does for that type of role, and offer grant opportunities. Really, that individual becomes a skilled professional within the community, and is the key person that helps go and do all the, like, you guys have had a number of, you know, people running around doing all this, and then that person really is the point person to funnel it to, and then correlate it and bring it back in a package, with suggestions and whatnot. So I personally feel like it's, everything I've taught, other cities I've talked to who have this set up, it's been quite impressive what they've been able to accomplish. And they talk to me about the advantages of having it set up that way. And I think that it's a pretty good idea. I think we're going in that direction.
Agrees here, we can start cleaning that direction.
I think with the ideas that we're moving around and with our mindset and trying to really start seeing things happen, I think it's great. Great idea. Any other comments?
I'll just share with you, for years, I have proposed that we get part-time directors. A director of Parks and Rec, a director of Economic Development, a director of Public Relations. These positions, my initial proposal was pay them $500 a month, they're part-time, and make them help us use the expertise we have available in our town here to help our city manager, so he doesn't have to do all these things. And so I very much support having an economic development leader of some sort. Doesn't have to be $500 a month, no. But I think we need help getting the word out with public relations, and with Parks and Rec, getting activities organized so that we can do more stuff. It would not be the July 4th stuff or those kind of fill in the boulevard thing. No, this is strictly a Parks and Rec type of thing. I have often thought that the president of the Keystone Heights Sports Association would be a perfect person to fill the head of Parks and Rec, because then we can marry up county activities with city activities. So I'll just, I think you're on the right track there, and I'll just add what I've been thinking for years.
Yeah, and everything I've seen with that position, I did look into. I know Palm Coast has got an opening, Jacksonville has an opening, depending on if it's a manager or director. But it's definitely going to be a lot more than $500 a month because of the level of what they are involved in, and based on my just really minimal research. So I think we just have to explore it and leave that to Charlie to decide what that the fit is the right fit in the right way.
Just a start. Get a
Yeah,
start.
absolutely. We're talking about it anyway. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving right along. Ms. Lee? Yes.
I was
I was
gonna
just gonna say thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, thank you, but we need a motion as your as the CRA board to adopt this as your 2025 plan update with those two changes I mentioned. Just up the first paragraph that the project falls into 4 key categories, and we're moving Azalea Parsons into the CRA. And then from there, we will move towards the adoption by the council and the advertising and adoption here as your August meeting.
And you all have a draft of what that motion might sound like for your day.
Can I have a motion? I will entertain a motion.
I will I would make a motion for redevelopment agency board to approve the draft of 2025 community redevelopment area plan with the amendment identified by the board meeting for the public and agency notice and the upcoming city council voting on the plan on August 4th, 2025.
I'll I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See, after all that, making you better.
Excellent. Thanks, you guys. All right, our meeting's adjourned. Thank you.